Happy summer, Aspire leaders. I am back home finally from Breckenridge, Colorado, as I got to keynote at the MELC conference. And wow, what a wonderful group of educational leaders. It was amazing to share about enhancing your leadership capacity with healthy habits and just the energy and excitement these folks left with as they were going back to their various states. For those looking to book in the future for August, I'm already setting those up for visits at various schools in August. So hit me up at joshua@teachbetter.com if you are interested in learning more about enhancing your leadership capacity with healthy habits. Also going over the book, as many campuses are purchasing the book to do a book study in relation to the speaking that I'll be doing at the various campuses. Now, just a little housekeeping. On Wednesday, I'm going to be dropping a bonus episode with the wonderful Mitch Weathers of Organized Binder, as we're going to be diving even deeper into the topic of executive functioning and how to implement that not only in the classroom, but then also on your campus. But this week, I wanted to get right into the conversation because I have a wonderful old friend and college roommate, Rich Larson, with me this week. Thankfully, he didn't share too many embarrassing stories of me as a college student, but we did have a great conversation about a variety of ways to gather feedback from your staff and your students to make the best decisions for your campus. So join us as Rich is going to share about his principalship in Minnesota, some of the experiences he went through in a new community, and Rich drops a lot of wisdom on lessons he's learned in his short period of time as the building leader. Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Aspire leaders and Teach Better family, thank you so much for joining me again on Aspire to Lead this week. And I have a phenomenal guest, someone that I have been connected with for, I want to say, most of my life. I went to college with this amazing educational leader. And at the time that we were in college, I don't think either of us probably thought we would be where we are today as educators, as teachers, leaders, administrators. So with that, I have the honor and pleasure of having my very good friend, Rich Larson.
Thanks, Josh. Yep, I was thinking back to that as well when you and our friend Jason were living in the porch. We maxed out the space in the townhouse, and you were in the porch with a space heater.
We
never would have thought we'd be here today. I know we have.
No, it's crazy because I was just having a conversation with one of our roommates in college at Bethel University, and we were talking about just how every single person that we all lived, because there were 6 of us all living together for multiple years, that we've all had some form of education. You know, someone's a teaching pastor or have gone into the school system for most of all of our guys. So the university level, middle school, high school. So it's just amazing to think where we were and where we are now. But with that, Rich, I would love for you just to share about your education leader journey and how you got to be a principal at the current school you're at right now.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. And thanks for having me on this podcast. I was a teacher, 7th grade for 9 years. That was my first job. Actually, probably I should back up and say 1 year before that, I went to South Africa as an intern to a missionary and ended up teaching in a public school in the oceanside city of Durban for 1 year, teaching high school and middle school, which was an incredible experience. It was a challenging experience, lots of growth. But I came back and got a job in Bloomington, Minnesota as a 7th grade science teacher, and then became a dean of students at a different middle school in Bloomington. And I was there for 4 years. And then I was associate principal at the middle school in Eden Prairie, which is a suburb. So we'd have about 650 to 700 kids per grade. And at the time, I was the only associate principal at the school, and we had 7th and 8th grade and then added 6th. So just shy of 2,000 kids between me and one other principal. And then I just finished my 2nd year here at Central High School and Central Middle School, where I'm the 612 principal. And that is kind of that first rural district outside of the metro Twin Cities area in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. So that's where I am now.
All right, buddy, I got to ask about that transition, because it's one thing to be in the suburbs, but it's another to be in a rural area. But then also, you know, you've got your own campus now. So what was that transition like? What were some of the hurdles that happened right away when you got that role as being the new principal?
Well, I think there were some hard gear shifts. I think that I had to learn coming from the middle school out here. For example, one of the biggest activities here is our FFA. FFA is huge and it's a big priority. And that includes activities like trap shooting, where in Eden Prairie, even if a kid draws a firearm on their notebook, we are interviewing and investigating and everything that goes with that. And out here, I remember an example of my gear shift is we posted all the senior pictures, and there was one girl, sweet little girl with pigtails. She didn't have pigtails, but sweet little girl holding the shotgun in her senior pictures. And I was like, no, we can't post that in school. And I learned I was wrong. You can post that at school. And because my point is FFA, trap shoot, she was a member of the trap shooting club. Big priority to people here. We'd drive your tractor to school day. We had a therapy llama one day in school I got a photo with. So a lot of the challenges and things that we were dealing with are really different. One more example I'd share with you is I had a student who I was working with, and he was just exhausted one day and asked for a pass on class I did take a test. I'm like, why are you so tired? What were you doing last night? And he was like, I was following the combine with this, catching all of the harvest till 2:30 in the morning on school night. And I was like, wow, that is something I never experienced in the metro area. So couldn't be happier here, though. Just wonderful community. They passed a referendum for a new building at like 78%, real high support for the school. Wonderful, wonderful people here. And I'm super grateful.
No, I love that, man. It does require you to kind of do an assessment of not only the practices that are going on the campus, but then also the culture within the community. And I think that takes some time, especially being a brand new leader. I want to ask you too, I know you're going through some growing pains in the sense that you're having some building construction. I know I've had that at 2 different districts and 2 different campuses, and that could be quite the whirlwind, especially when you're trying to end the school year on a high note. Just curious how that's been trying to manage that new building construction.
Well, it's been a challenge. We went through it in Eden Prairie, and here we are doing that as well. Last year, we had to end on May 5th, if you can believe. That was our last day of school. So, and then, they're knocking down walls and stuff the next day. And we were not even able to be in the building, except for like a little office where all of the district people rotated like one day a week. So there've been some challenges, and they were way delayed on how late they would have the building ready. So we started also really late. Our first day of school was mid-September. So being off from May 5th to mid-September, especially following, the COVID years, that's a ding when kids are not, in the classroom for that amount of time is really a challenge. It was frustrating a little bit, but the payoff of the wonderful new facility, what this community is getting, it's been really great. But I would love to give a huge shout out to our staff for the flexibility that they have shown, with people coming in and working in their classrooms and having uncertainty and the smell of tar on the roof coming through at times, or even today, the people that are working here in their summer school, the internet went out because of some demo work. So it's been a challenge, but I think everybody's kind of got their eye on the ball and the reward at the end.
Sure.
Which has been slowly turned over to us over time. It's going to be really great.
So what Rich is really saying is that we could lose him in this conversation at any point due to the construction that's going on. But also, I think, Rich, you made a good point of just like that uncertainty, right? Like we don't have control sometimes of the environment and the things that may be going on where you're having to put out fires. So in a position that already occurs on a daily basis to add additional items, like building construction, that can be a difficult time.
Embrace the uncertainty. There's your leadership lesson.
Yeah, for those aspiring leaders, that's exactly what you need to have tattooed on your forehead.
Yeah.
All right. So, Rich, let's talk about some of the process going through in regards to staff leadership, because I know being a new principal, you kind of have to build your new team and get everyone on the same page. So I want to know what you did for your leadership team to include all of your voices.
Thanks, Josh. That's a great question. I think for any new leader, piece of advice I received that I would pass on is start out really being a good listener and really trying to identify what the priorities are for people. So before I started, someone gave me this advice that I would share. Before I started this role, I got hired in early May or whatever. And I came out at the end of May when I was still in Eden Prairie, took a vacation day, and I interviewed any staff member that wanted to meet me and just chat a little bit and hear from them. What are the things that they think are going really well? What are the challenges? What are their expectations of a new leader? And I really was able to generate some themes and share that back with the staff and say, here are some of the things that I heard and some things that I'm excited about. And I would really recommend that for anybody getting a new leadership position of any kind, just to create an appointment to come in and listen. And what we did is, at the time of my first arrival, there was PLC leads, there were department leads, there were grade level leads, and there were different meetings of leaders that would take place, and a lot of them overlapped. And what we decided to do is to have one instructional leadership team, which included representatives from a grade level, different departments and PLCs. And that is something I really focused on, being the vehicle through which change happens at our school, the vehicle through which we receive feedback, because it's where we meet, every other week. And I keep an agenda where the topics come, a lot of times they come from staff members or from whatever's going on, and we have a specific outcome. And as a committee, like, each person has a role of getting feedback from the people that they're representing and bringing them back. And it's something that, we had to pump the brakes on decisions sometimes, because we would say, want to encourage you to go back and get feedback on this thing that we're thinking about. An example was our grading policy. When I first came, I think the very first day of workshop, Rick Wormelli came and spoke to us about grading practices, because there wasn't like a defined grading policy in place. And it was something that people had communicated, there's inconsistencies, and a grade means something different here than it does here. And that was an example of something that we did, Josh, where we would talk about what are our priorities for things to assess with our grading policies. Where do we need to really tighten up? And we would take each of those. As a group, we'd look at research. We would gather feedback on specific questions from our constituents, if you will, come back and then discuss. And through doing that, we were able to develop language throughout the year around retakes, around weighted grades. But I think some of the big ones were retakes and summatives, and how to weight those, and how do we define a grade. The thing that made me so proud of the work that we did is that really felt like staff voice was included. And as a leader, one of the challenges is including everyone's voice, but recognizing that just because your voice is in the room or your feedback is shared, it may not go the way that you would want it to. But how do you make sure that people still feel heard, feel like they're a part of it, even if the way that they see something going isn't exactly how it goes? Because there's no way to get feedback from a large group and have a consensus all the time. That group of instructional leadership, the instructional leadership team here at our school is, these are just people that I just care about deeply. They're committed to our students. They're committed to growth and committed to making sure that people's voice are lifted as we navigate challenges and consider change.
Yeah. Rick Wormley is one of my favorites. He's been a guest on the podcast and has a great book, Fair's Not Always Equal. And I highly recommend anyone that's looking for, changing their assessment or their grading policies to definitely check out that resource. And then, Rich, I'm curious. I know, when I've been on multiple campuses where we've changed our grading policies, and some of the conversations were extremely spirited. I know that some people are very convicted when it comes to grades. I'm curious if that was something that was similar on your campus when broaching this topic.
Yeah. I'm kind of reading between the lines on spirited. I think that people were passionate.
Yeah.
But also really keeping the purpose and the why in front of us was really helpful, in my opinion, because everyone saw the need to be consistent. Mm-hmm. The need to be common, and the need to have the grades be as valuable as possible.
Yeah.
And I think to that end, when we keep our eye on where we want to go and what that hopeful outcome is, it really helps to navigate some of those different opinions. And I think that some of us perhaps who have, done it a certain way for a longer period of time, sometimes, like for me, it's something that I'm used to doing one particular way for a long period of time. If I'm asked to change that can be a challenge.
Yep.
As it would be for anybody. And like the idea of retakes, I think the thing that you might hear often is like, wow, you don't get a retakes in the real world, and I think that that's valid. There's sometimes in work, there's really high pressure situations that we have to, you don't get to redo your presentation for the community on your referendum. And you also do get to retake your driver's license test,
Right.
so it's kind of both. If you're one of those people that fail,
or teaching license or admin license. I mean, there's a
oh
lot
yeah,
of...
oh yeah. And I think that people have beliefs and experiences, and those are valid and good. And I think that really keeping your eye on the ball of, we want to land it consistent. We want to do what's best for kids. We want to have research. And then when we implement something, we want to gather feedback. I think if I were going to say one more thing about this for listeners, when you're implementing change in a group setting like this, is as the leader, when I was a teacher, my principal used to say, there are 3 types of decisions. One, I'm just going to make the call, spare you all the time, and that's going to be something I'm just make the call. Another one is I'm going to gather that feedback and really try to take that feedback and then make a decision about the next best move. And then sometimes I'm going to leave it up to the group to kind of come to where you want to land. And I think being really clear about what type of a decision, because if people thinking that their opinion is going to really drive where it goes, but it's actually something that you've maybe already made the decision, like having those expectations not be aligned can sometimes lead to heartache. So that was something I learned from somebody that I'd love to share right now, is just being clear about what type of decision are we talking about as a group.
So one of my buddies, Brad Hughes, who's on the podcast every month, he talks about clear communication is kind. And I truly believe that. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think as a leader, communication is just so important to be effective. And if you don't provide that information, then people are going to jump to their own conclusions and assume something that's probably very different than what is actually going on. So I love that piece, Rich. I hope everyone that's listening is able to communicate those 3 decisions to their staff, because I do truly think that'll be helpful for all parties involved.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
I do want to touch on something that you've constructed on your campus for student leadership, which I absolutely love. So I want you to talk about this construction of the Principal's Advisory Leadership Council.
I had a chance to go to the Ed Leader Conference, and when I did that, I visited a school and had a chance to see this principal, who was a new fella in the community, and he created the Principal's Advisory Leadership Council, something to that effect that he named it. And it was mostly an opportunity for kids to come together and help him learn about the culture and the priorities. But that triggered an idea for me to create an opportunity for students to meet with me at least once a month, just to talk about issues that are important to them, for me to come back and get feedback from the students. So every year at the start of the year, I put out a Google form and I invite students to apply for this. Just kind of say, what are some of the things that they think need to be addressed at the school? What are some of the leadership experiences they've had? Who could speak on their character, on behalf of their character? And so normally we get about 25 to 30 students that represent, middle school to high school. I think a lot of this is really sophomores. I've noticed a heavy amount of sophomores coming in with this group, and I provide food for them, which is key for any growing teenager. And we come together and I have an agenda, and they are able to bring things to me. And I think the most of our time is spent me bringing things to them, looking at feedback. For example, we revamped how we celebrate our graduates' achievements, valedictorian, salutatorian, made a pivot from that. Got feedback from them on our building project. We got feedback from them on grading policy when we were going through that. And they're able to bring things to me as well, too. Things as simple as the menu, the food that we have for kids, as well as the phone policy. The phone policy was one that we spent some time talking about. And it's really nice to have a group of kids, leaders, that you can say, here is where we're coming from. This is what we're thinking. This is what this school does and that school does. What do you guys think? And there were times, like with the staff instructional leadership team, I say to the students, I'd like you to go gather feedback from your classmates and friends and come back and let's discuss.
Yeah, having the student voice is huge. And I love that you've created something for them to be able to, have ownership within their own educational environment. And I think, all those things are important to kids. I mean, shoot, one of my favorite things was the food. To be able to decide what I got to eat would be huge. I love that you've got this group for them to be able to voice what's going on in their lives and what they want in regards to the various aspects of the campus. I'm curious, Rich, as far as the second year as a principal on a campus, is this the year that you've been able to kind of put your fingerprints on things, or did you start to make some drastic changes in various places? I know you talked about the grading policy, but I didn't know if there was anything else that you kind of spearheaded this year as you've had some time to assess.
Yeah, maybe it would depend who you ask. No, we do have one of the things that I love about our school is it's about 80 to 100 kids a grade. And I really, really try to prioritize getting to know, and at least know by name each student. Because that's, grade 6 through 12. That's been a really big piece. And then beginning to know families and things like that. That's been a big second year piece for me. I do give a lot of, maybe too much, stock to the kind of the 360 evaluation that I get from teachers. One of the pieces was, speed of change, sometimes a little bit fast. And sometimes looking back now over 2 years, you're like, we did do some really kind of big things, some big changes in terms of what we did, the grading policy being one of those things, or how we handle graduation. We do, we have the, kind of the what I need or win time, or, there have been a series of things that we've done that I just want to make sure that I'm being conscientious of change at the right pace, and that's where, again, collaborating well with that instructional leadership team, having a culture where people feel safe to share their feedback is really, really important. So for any new leader coming into, like, I was always stumped as a new leader, like when people say, like, how do you incorporate community voice and staff voice and student voice when you make decisions? And that one was a tricky thing for me. And I think it's helpful to think through, how do parents have voice in the inner workings of a school? How do students have voice? How do teachers have voice? Because I'm going to tell you right now, we moved away from valedictorian. And that was something that we had district leadership voice, parent voice. We had a focus group, students and staff. And when you do make a big change like that, being able to come forward and say, here's the feedback that we got from this group, from this group, from this group, from this group. Here's the research we did on best practice. Here's the research that we did with all of these neighborhood districts, what they all do. Being able to have a very thoughtful process with change, I think, is something that I've learned through that, through those 2 years. And sometimes got to go slow to go fast. And I'm reflecting on some of the feedback I received of where I need to slow down, and where I find myself in trouble sometimes is where maybe I didn't take the time to get the feedback. I didn't take the time to look at what are other people doing? Because sometimes as a leader, you see what's the right thing to do in your mind, and you want to run after it. And so often I'm realizing I'm nowhere even close to the smartest person in the room. The answer's in the room, and it doesn't lie with me when I start there. So what conditions have I created to be able to help the group collectively move in that direction? And so I'm really proud of the work, again, this instructional leadership team has done. I can talk about one other thing in just a moment, but after that second year, we've made some really big changes. Staff have done some wonderful things, and I couldn't have done it without the fantastic leaders and teachers, staff members in our building, in our district.
Well, I just want to say, Rich, I don't want you to feel alone in that, because I got the same feedback in my leadership journey in regards to going too fast. And I had someone, and I've shared this on the podcast before, but someone had talked about, like, the difference between running a campus as if you were driving a speedboat versus a cruise ship. And obviously I was trying to do the speedboat, and, with decision makings and whatnot, like, I remember getting that feedback in a form at the end of the school year, and they had talked about all the initiatives that we had adopted and changed and things like that. And so the admin staff, in a meeting, we just took a whiteboard and we just started writing down all the things that we had implemented just in that school year, and realized, oh shoot, we may have gone a little too fast for this group of wonderful educators. And, they were on the same pace as us in regards to implementing it, but at the same time, it was just probably too much to add to their plate in changing a variety of things. And sometimes, when you're in the midst of it, you don't even realize how much has occurred in such a small period of time.
It's a great point, what you say there, Josh, because I think that every organization has a capacity for change.
Yep.
And in the moment, you don't realize how much you've done. I love that practice you did where you listed it all out, because it can be really destructive to blow past what that capacity for change was. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues listening would be like, yeah, Rich, you definitely did that. And I'm always open to feedback.
Well, I mean, when you get into, like, for myself, and I don't know if you're like this too, Rich, but I see like a blank canvas, right? And it's like all the things that it can be. And you want to start molding it to the direction that you feel passionate about. And so, for myself, I have to understand, like, some of the folks that I was leading was in the building for 20 years, and they had seen very little change over that time. And then, this new group of leaders come in, and then it's like, it seemed like change every other week. So just to be empathetic to that difference. And understanding. Yeah, it's a huge difference. So
empathy is a good word.
Yeah. We need more of that as within leadership. So Rich, you had talked about touching on something that you had implemented, and I want to give you the space to share about that.
Well, when I did those interviews with staff members before I started, one of the things that they talked about is building school culture and climate, recognizing students, recognizing staff. So we started and it happened actually to a degree beforehand, but one of the things that we've tried to really be focused on doing well is having a monthly assembly where we build culture by having fun together. We do, started out with minute to win it games, then Jeopardy games, or like bring up somebody in blindfold and they have to draw something while the grade level kids have to try to identify what is grades compete with each other. I bring my guitar in and sing, because on one of my surveys I always put, what's your favorite song right now? And then I'll learn it sometimes and play for them. There's the choir will perform, but most importantly, staff get to select students in each grade, character awards for academic achievement awards, Raider Pride awards, and then students can vote or nominate other students for character awards and write specifically what they appreciate about them. Students also nominate a staff member for the Goose Award, which is get out of school early, and then I cover that staff member's class at the end of the day. But the thing that I love about that is it's the opportunity to build culture by recognizing the things that are happening, trying to express appreciation, because so often it's thinking about focusing on fixing something, or in our worlds and as leaders, often it's problem, but there's so much good happening. And people have a need to be a part of something bigger than themselves, something good. And I think as leaders, trying to create a space where we honor each other has been something that I've been so excited about here at this school. And one of our building goals is a culture climate goal. And we ask 4 main questions. One is, do I feel like I can achieve academic success here? Is there one adult in the building who knows me well? And is there one adult that I could go to with a serious problem? We track that, and we track who maybe said no and not being known. And then as we try to be really strategic about making those connections, but our goal is growth. And we hit that growth this year through those kinds of things, because when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging, feeling safe, that's a prerequisite to some of the more creativity and some of the output that we're hoping for and achievement for our students. But really caring about that whole person for staff and students, that assembly, that recognition. I think we recognize about 32 people per month at a minimum. That has been something that I'm really proud of in our school, that I wanted to share, that is going, and something that I've heard feedback very clear. We need to keep doing this because it's impactful.
Oh, for sure. Think about all of the negative that our students see on social media, or they hear in the hallways, or, I know that a lot of our teachers too, get a lot of unfortunate feedback from parents and students that rightfully sometimes it doesn't belong. And so to have an outlet to celebrate, to uplift, I think every human can use a little bit more of that. So if you can build that within your school to help amplify that culture, I just absolutely love that, Rich. So
yeah, social media is a good thing too. I heard someone once say, as a school leader, you should tell your story or someone else is going to tell it for you.
Yep.
I thought that was a great piece of advice. So like at the assembly, one of my colleagues would have her camera and she's posting to Facebook. And, when we have the Drive Your Tractor in School Day, when you're recognizing this or celebrating students for something, tell your story,
Yep.
or else someone else may do that.
For sure. Yeah. It's that filling in the blank, and usually that fill in the blank's negative. So we gotta make sure that we're telling the correct story and letting folks into the building, and as far as being able to see all the amazing things that are occurring, because it's truly fantastic to see some of the work that our young people are doing. So we got to give credit and then also amplify that out to the community.
I wanted to say too that one thing that I am super blessed with is my superintendent has really modeled for me leadership in the way that he is so supportive. When I have an idea or our group has an idea, he is just so committed to trying to make that work. And that to me has been a model for like when a teacher comes and I want to do this thing, I want to do this field trip, or I want to bring in, I have had it modeled for me what it looks like to be a super, super supportive leader. And also, of course, he'll say, Rich, well, have you thought about this? It's not just a yes man. But I think, again, I am not anywhere close to the smartest person in the room. Being able to empower people to come with ideas and try things. And it's okay if something fails. That's what's been modeled to me. And it's been a big part of the success of the school, being able to, teachers get a great idea. Let's do it, and you can really discover some gold mines doing that. So
I love it.
Shout out to my supervisor, Tim Schockmeyer, as a superintendent, who's also behind this building project we have going on too. So,
well, we can thank him too. And I want to give you the opportunity, Rich, to do what Tim's done to you and impart on other people that are listening. This is a question that I ask all of my guests. It's kind of our baseline to keep us doing actionable items beyond just consuming the conversations that are occurring. So if there's something our aspiring or current leaders can do tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you advise them to do?
Good question. I would take an assessment of how the stakeholders' voices play a role in the decisions that are being made or whatever you're going through right now. Community members, teachers, staff members, students, how are their roles? How is their voice lifted in the decisions that you are making? I think I heard one of my favorite leaders is Craig Groeschel, and he says, you can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. So I think
awesome.
Where can you delegate? Where are there areas that you can empower and raise up other leaders to do things? Because I sometimes want to just do it. Like I'm a human doing, not a human being. Human doer. And it's a fault. I think what things can you offer other people to do, even though it might not be done the exact same way you would have done it, maybe it'll be done better. But I think that's the thing. I think about voice of stakeholders, think about how can you delegate and allow someone else to lead. And then the last thing, like I would say is, again, like with your group of leaders, like being clear about the decisions that you make and where their voice, how that would play a role. Those are a few things that I would share.
Rich, I want to highlight what you talked about with being done differently, but could be better. And I have seen this firsthand where someone has come in, had some type of crazy idea. I've said yes to it, wanted to intervene, get involved, take over the project, but have begrudgingly kind of stepped back. And they did something completely different, but it was completely better than the outcome would have been if I would have been involved. And I think there's power in saying yes, but there's also power in allowing it to play out, even though it's really, really difficult as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes wisdom. You have to ask God every day for wisdom, because some things you got to say no to, because that would be a train wreck. Yeah, right. But other times, like there are things that are, people want things that I've experienced at school that a staff member comes with that they want to try. Never would have thought of doing that, and they do it, and it is a total smash success. And then give credit where credit's due.
then get to that assembly and shout them out.
Yeah, right. Right.
All right, buddy. So I know we've covered a lot of different topics today. I would love for my listeners to be able to connect with you, or maybe there's something that they want to gain more information. Maybe it's a new leader out there that's taking over as a principal. Maybe there's an initiative that, maybe they're struggling through, like a grading policy, whatnot. I would love for them to reach out and get some more wisdom from you. So what's the best way they can connect with you, either on social media or another outlet?
I think email is probably the best. I would say I'm at rlarson, Larson, at isd108.org. It's my email if you want to throw it in there.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to share with you just even my phone number. Just drop me an email. I'd be happy to have a conversation with somebody. If I could be, I've had so many people help me, in my leadership. And if I could do anything to help anyone else, I'd be happy to, Josh.
Love it. Well, Rich is a dear friend of mine, someone that at a very young age had an imprint, and I would probably not be on screen right now without some of the wisdom that I got even at a young age with Rich. So
Thanks,
love
Josh.
This guy to death. So I'll have his email address on my website, joshstamper.com, and of course be in the show notes for those who are on your podcast platforms or on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us in the video format. Make sure that you're hitting the like and the subscribe button over at Josh Stamper, or you can go over to the Teach Better YouTube page also. That's a growing community, and really would love for people to subscribe there also. But with that, Rich, I could spend literally hours raving about who you are as a person and just how proud I am of what you've done with your leadership journey and how you're impacting so many folks in Minnesota. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for being on Aspire to Lead.
Thanks, Josh. Love you too, man. I'm super proud of you as well. It's great to connect with you. And you better call next time we're in Minnesota. We got to get together. So
we are making that happen. I promise you.
Yes, it's happening. Go to a Twins game.